You can help support and promote the show by purchasing our merchandise at cafepress.com/Packard Pokes At, where you can choose from a variety of different items like hoodies, hats, and bears. Oh my! Put a Packard Pokes At mug in your hands today.
Do you like Packard Pokes At and want to hear it on demand and on the go? Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. Available on iOS, Android, Nook, and iPad.
This is Packard Pokes At, and I'm poking at your news. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another fine edition of Packard Pokes At. I am your immutable and unmutable host, Packard Sonic. And joining us tonight from the far middle of nowhere is Dave, you're damned.
Word.
He lives in the Mitt, which is called Michigan. And joining us from the far west coast is Connie, Practical Magic 9.
Bangarang.
Bangarang. Nice. Before we get started on the show on episode 172, by the way, I want to take a quick moment to mention the passing of Robin Williams. Unless you're living under a rock, you know that he has passed away because of a suicide attempt, or at least he attempted suicide and he completed that attempt. I want to thank him for being the kind of person that he was and bringing so much joy to so many people. And Connie, do you have anything you'd want to say about Robin?
I remember first hearing about Mork and Mindy, and from that moment on, there was just this wild thing. I just loved almost everything he did, and one of my favorite memories is his first interview on The Carson Show, and he actually wound up taking over the show. Carson lost all control, and the man was just so manic and so brilliantly creative, and I think we're all very lucky to have had him share his talent for the time he was here, and he'll never be forgotten. I swear. There will never be another Robin Williams.
No. He was energy incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the go. I mean, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just like his mind worked so quickly. I mean, if I could have tapped into that ability.
I bet it looked like a pachinko machine inside, you know.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
A plinko machine, yeah, in his brain. Where's this going?
Mm-hmm.
Dave, your thoughts on Robin Williams?
Well, I think that the enormous outpouring of people who were impacted by him has been really heartwarming. And it just shows what an impact that he made. And the way that he went is opening a discussion that is going to bring suicide. It's going to make suicide something that's more discussed and make it something that maybe is less of a taboo subject.
Mm-hmm.
People.
Yeah.
I think that he's continuing to make people understand things that seemed understandable, or it seemed less understandable in the past. And fuck Rush Limbaugh.
Bravo. Not literally, but yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch that man if he was a stolen dick.
Well, I mean, his statements about this have been some of the most vile things to ever say about a human being, and he's trying to politicize. It's something that just shouldn't be politicized. So,
right.
Fuck that guy, and anyone else who tries to use it as a political chip or to try to further their agenda instead of just looking at this as a tragedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then he recently just backpedaled, as of today or a couple days ago. He backpedaled on that completely, and it's like he goes out and says such vile things about such a beloved man, and then he turns around and then tries to backpedal on it. I mean, everybody has their faults, but he didn't deserve to be skewered like that, especially by the likes of somebody like Rush Limbaugh.
Well, nobody's suicide is something that should be exploited.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. All right. Well, with that said, we do have to get moving on with the show, and we're going to get to our first story for this evening.
Building a better future, science and technology.
Batteries. We have discussed batteries on the show to great length. In fact, if we talk about batteries anymore, the battery mart down the street is going to bring a truckload of batteries to my house and say, here, shut up already.
Hopeful thinking?
Hopeful thinking. Hopeful thinking. There's a great movie out there that has, if you most likely have seen it, it's Back to the Future Part 2, where Doc Brown comes back to the future. He starts grabbing trash and garbage, and he throws it into this little thing called Mr. Fusion. And that's supposed to give him the energy he needs. That, in a sense, was a type of battery. I mean, it was producing energy from garbage. In reality, we are getting really close to this Mr. Fusion. Not as in fusion energy, but we are getting close to it in battery technology. Specifically speaking, with hemp. Now, with hemp, the fibers are being mixed down, and they have the same kind of capacity to hold energy as graphene. And we have mentioned graphene here on the show. Now, one of the things that's nicer about the hemp plant is that it's a lot easier to grow, and it can grow pretty much everywhere. There's no THC, so it's completely legal. And the waste of it is that you can get battery power out of this. In fact, they've actually been working on this to such a degree that they've actually been able to make power out of a banana peel. That's kind of why I mentioned the Mr. Fusion. So with this in mind, battery technology is constantly changing. And someday, the cell phone that you have, or tablet, or whatever, the battery that's in there may work on hemp power. Who knows? Dave, your thoughts?
Oh, I hear about different things that hemp and marijuana can do, and frankly, at this point, I'm so skeptical of all of it that I have to do 5 times the research that I do on other topics. The fact of the matter is that there's communities of alternative health and alternative energies and alternative all sorts of things that want to make hemp into this miracle thing. And I don't know about this. I don't know if it's a legitimate thing or not. Mm-hmm. But I do know that there's this push to make hemp the cure-all for all of society's problems, and it simply isn't. And it's not going to be the cure-all for all of society's problems, and it's not going to be this medicine that it doesn't cure cancer. It doesn't do this.
No.
Just, I think that making it illegal, though, in the sense that, most of the United States has marijuana in general being illegal, it prevents us from doing a lot of the research, and a lot of the research has been really neglected to find out what exactly it can do. Yeah, so the legitimate uses aren't necessarily looked at and researched enough, whereas the illegitimate uses are just being showcased all of the time mm-hmm. without any kind of real substantiation. So even if some of these claims are true, mm-hmm. there's no way to actually provide the evidence to support the truth within it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that marijuana should be legal all across the board. Hemp production is not legal everywhere in the United States.
No, not yet.
And it's a shame because, actual hemp doesn't get you high. It doesn't do anything like that. A lot of the issues that led to it becoming illegal were really because hemp is the strongest natural fiber that exists. Mm-hmm. And a lot of large corporations were developing synthetic ropes that wouldn't be able to be competitive with this natural fiber if it were legal for anyone to use.
Right.
So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this sounds like a cool thing. It may very well be a cool thing. I really don't know. I'm skeptical of everything that comes out about hemp and marijuana technology nowadays just because it's been so overblown into this miracle that can do anything without any real substantiated evidence.
That's true. That's interesting. It is a developing story. We'll keep on top of it as the story continues. Connie, your thoughts?
Well, this is actually coming not just from the fiber itself that is used in making clothing in places like China and Canada and the UK. This is the leftovers. This is the stuff that's winding up in landfills. Mm-hmm. It's basically the bark. It's the core, the hard core of the plant. And so they have to kind of cook it. Like, I when I read it, I imagined it like a pressure cooker, something called hydrothermal synthesis to dissolve the lignin and semicellulose and leaves the carbon nanosheets. And I guess it's quite a lot less expensive than graphene, and evidently it can conduct high heat up to like 100 degrees Celsius, if I remember correctly. And so what I liked about this story is just that, again, hemp for clothing, I've heard that it's really quite good. It's, about it being a strong fiber, like Dave said.
Mm-hmm.
This is like recycling. This is taking the whole plant and doing something with it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But if it makes a better and less expensive source of battery that can charge really fast
Mm-hmm.
and hold a charge really well and go to a high heat, then I'm very excited by that. It's just, again, they're still in the process of developing this.
Right.
And there was one other thing here, and I don't think I see it on my page, but yeah. So, the more that we try and look for alternate sources of energy, I'm excited by that. And the only way to know is to go ahead and research it.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. We should definitely be looking into alternate sources for battery power. And if we can get battery power out of the waste products of the stuff that's around us, and this way our landfills will get less filled, and this way maybe someday, instead of taking the trash out to the corner, we'll be sticking it in a special device, and it'll say, okay, going to make energy out of this, and then we're going to take the remains of whatever's thrown away and get energy out of it at some point. I mean,
like our story about the Netherlands, about the recycling plants that they have, and how that's where they get their electricity. They turn turbines with the burning of this garbage. They have to import garbage, and that's extremely efficient. That's brilliant. So yeah,
that would be great. I mean, especially if something like this is used. I mean, and as Dave has mentioned, it is illegal in several states. I'm sure it's illegal in a lot of states right now. But you commented there that it ends up usually in the landfill. So if we can put it to use, then why not? Let's give it a shot. What else can we do with it? I mean, instead of having it fill up the landfills, let's do something else with the rest of it.
Yep.
Anyone have any last thoughts on that?
Go alternative energy.
Yes, good alternative energy.
The states the places that don't want to let people have pot and grow hemp are probably just the sad places anyways.
Yeah. No happiness for you.
They need it the most.
Yes, they need it the most. All right, well, let's get on to our next topic for this evening.
Well, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box.
People, when they're alone with their thoughts, you can get pretty bored. I mean, if you're just think of the times when your cell phone has run out of juice and you're in the middle of nowhere and you're sitting here, oh gosh, I'm going to get so bored. And even Joe on the show has said that before cell phones, he didn't know what he's going to do himself in the bathroom. I mean, come on. You go in there to do something, but you end up sitting in there a little longer than you expected because, well, you got a cell phone. Now you got things to do while you're there. But the thing is, we as a species right now, we get bored easily. I mean, we can get bored. I mean, when a matter of 5 or 10 minutes, you're sitting here going, okay, I can do this, and then it's like, oh, somebody just do something. I got to do something, because our brains are constantly moving or thinking rather, and we can't shut it off like a light switch. Like, okay, I need to shut this off so I can relax or whatever. It just doesn't work that way. Did this study with some people, and they said, hey, we want you to go into this room, sit down, and we want you to think about something. And don't think about anything else. There's nothing else in the room to distract you. The walls are bare, and we want you to imagine something for us on command. Imagination is a fun thing, but when you have to do it on command, it becomes less fun real fast. And they took some of these people and they gave them the option to do something to at least occupy their time by electroshock. And some of them said, hey, I'd pay $5 not to get shocked again, but as the time progressed, they got, you know what? Screw it, I'm bored. Let me shock myself again. Oh, yeah, that was exciting. You know, you got to keep that stimulation. It doesn't matter where the stimulation comes from as long as you get some kind of stimulation, which is really kind of weird, but it's also very human. Dave, your thoughts?
I'm awesome, and I would spend all sorts of time just with me. I got no problem. I mean, I don't really understand why someone would zap themselves as a... I mean, how strong was this electricity shock? I mean, it's a mild electric jolt. If it's really... I just don't understand. I really don't. I don't get it. I don't get why you would zap yourself. Makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I don't understand that either, but I mean, if you're that bored, I mean, I don't see why not.
Well, it's 6 to 15 minutes. I mean, you have to spend 6 to 15 minutes by yourself without any, phones, books, pens, doodling, distractions of any kind. Just stay awake, be quiet, and sit idly in their seats. Well, I don't argue. Why is that so difficult? 15 minutes. You can't spend 15 minutes just sitting there not doing anything. That's the problem with the world today. Like we need to schedule time that we just do nothing and clear minds. I mean, I don't get it. I daydream all the time. I think it's great.
Yeah, I understand that. Connie, your thoughts?
I think that, like Dave said, when I read this article, because I know we found it, just the fact that it's 6 to 15 minutes, I'm going, that's not really all that long. I could sit there and make a list. I could sit there and think about, I could listen to music in my head that I've memorized songs. Actually, I usually wind up with a song stuck in my head. I was fortunate enough to have a song stuck in my head for 2 weeks one time. And it wasn't a good one. And it was like...
it was the Packard Pokes At theme, wasn't it?
No. If I think about it, I'm going to think about it again, so I'm just not trying to think about it that hard, okay?
Cast away on Gilligan's Island, right?
No, not that. But I know, really, you'd rather shock yourself. Now, I admit, I do like reading. If I'm given time when I like to have a book to read, a magazine to read, when I would sit down at the table growing up, I would read the cereal boxes. I'm a reader, and I draw. So doodling, is kind of a natural thing for me to want to do that. But at the same time, and again, when I was a Christian, I could pray for a long time. I could be in basically a very meditative state. So I have ideas for books and drawings, and I go, cartoons. I go through, and I can sit there and go through my head, and I know I could burn 15 minutes easily. Are people that uncomfortable with themselves? That's what the question I ask. It's strange to me that people would be that weirded out about the silence. It's honestly, it's kind of like my husband. He doesn't like to have everything quiet. He's constantly doing something.
I understand that.
So yeah, and making noise, or he's got something going at all times. So I don't know. I guess we have most human beings have the attention span of a hiccup, and that sounds very judgmental to say it that way.
Well, no, but, I completely understand that. I had a couple winters ago, they had to shut the power down in my entire house for 8 hours while they worked outside to get power restored to my place. And I'm sitting here literally in the middle of winter. I couldn't there's no heat to turn on except for my gas stove, fortunately, so I didn't freeze to death. And I couldn't use my smart devices except for once every little bit. And otherwise,
right.
it would have just gone dead, and I would have had nothing to do. So I would turn it on once every hour or every half hour, just put it on for a couple minutes, and go okay, play a quick game or something, and then shut it off and all the way down. So this way it would save the battery power. But I had to do that for 8 hours. I can't, but I mean, I literally had little things to do in the house. I mean, I found things to do, even though there was nothing to do really, because the power was out. I mean, I couldn't get on the internet, nothing like that. So, and it's nighttime, middle of winter. What are you gonna do? So.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, from a fairly young age, I came to the conclusion that I was never going to be bored. Mm-hmm. Just because if you're bored, what does that say about yourself? You have no one to blame but yourself if you're bored.
Right.
You yourself, you have to be that boring of a person in general. Mm-hmm. can't just sit there and entertain yourself in some way. And so I've never understood boredom in general. I mean, my brain always goes, and I'm always thinking of something, and I can entertain myself pretty easily. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think that it's a symptom of the fast-paced society that we live in, because I suspect if this test were done, before all of these electronic stimulus that we have, a lot more people would be able to sit by themselves. I mean, what did the cowboys do out on the range? You think that they played with their smartphones? I mean,
no, they sang songs
and at the end of their day too. Before our idea of leisure built into your day, you probably worked very hard. And when you were done, you were happy just to sit and be quiet in front of a fireplace or something.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I saw this study done comparatively from now to, in the past. If we had that kind of information, I suspect that this is a new issue. I mean, this probably has to do with overstimulus of
bombardment.
Well, yeah, we live in a 24-hour news cycle now. I mean, you can't get away from the news anywhere. I mean, I literally have news alerts on my phone everywhere I go, and I could be, getting ready to do something, get out of my truck to go take care of the customer, and next thing I know, I've got 2-3 alerts coming on. It's like, what's going on?
And I admit being addicted to my smartphone and the internet and all of that. I mean, I spend a lot of time on my smartphone, but I mean, to think that I couldn't go 15 minutes just sitting in a room by myself, that's absolutely absurd to think that I would rather shock myself. I mean,
you'd be surprised. I
compute to me.
Yeah, I know. You and I and Connie here, we can't consider that, because the fact is, we understand boredom, and we understand we could focus our brains. But I know a lot of people out there that most likely they couldn't stand sitting 5 minutes alone quietly, even unless their pants were on fire, and then they could just enjoy the flames, basically.
Usually they're the kind of people who would not crack a book open. The kind of people who walk into a room and they automatically turn on like the TV and a bunch of things too. I don't mean to. I sounded very judgmental. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's not. Joe in the chat room, he said, "Be right back. I'm gonna go play with the outlet now." So. We're sorry, we're so boring.
No, Joe.
Don't play with the outlet, Joe.
Joe.
Don't say it's not Joe. That's not.
I love you, Joe.
We love you, Joe. Don't play with the outlets. Although someone did ask him if that's what is that what they're calling it now too. So.
It's code. It's code for something. Oh,
it's
God.
code for something else, all right? But you know what you don't need a code for? You don't need to give a code. The only code you need if you want to donate some money to Packard Pokes At is to go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Packard Pokes At. And you can donate as little as $1 a month, or $5, or $10, or $2, or whatever you have in your wallet. It's a one-time-a-month type deal. This way I can help try to keep my lights on, so I don't have to zap myself or run without electricity, because I can't run a generator in my house. I mean, I don't have a treadmill hooked up to one yet. I got to work on that. But
Packard zaps himself is an award-winning show. Let's do that.
I actually kind of like zapping myself. It's kind of fun. I find it.
I can see him running around getting static electricity. It sucks.
Right. But anyway, if you go to patreon.com/Packard Pokes At, and like I said, you could donate as little as $1, and it would really greatly appreciate it. You can help us keep the lights on here. And if you would like to get in contact with us, we're going to give you all that information right now.
You should contact us by email at ppapodcast or packardpokesat@gmail.com, and follow the show on Twitter as @PackardPokesAt, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/PackardPokesAt, or just type Packard Pokes At into the Facebook search bar. Call our Google Voice at 662-709-PPAP or 662-709-7727, and leave a short message and we will play it on the show. Join in the show live Friday nights at 9 p.m. Central Time at vaughnlive.tv/PackardPokesAt. Download and rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Mixler Radio, and watch the show on YouTube. Visit our show page at packardpokesat.wordpress.com for links to the stories and purchase merchandise from cafepress.com/packardpokesat to support the show. For everyone that rates us, you are awesome sauce.
And thank you, Joe. Even though you're not here, you still manage to get in here somehow. I don't know how he does it. He does it right from the chat room. Alrighty, well, let's get on to our next topic for this evening. And we have a video again for you this week, and this guy, well, let's just say you're going to know him real well.
The point is that we've got to rewrite the federal government. Now, this is not going to happen overnight. It took 130 years to bring us to where we are today. It could probably take 50 years to turn it around. But if we stand on the Constitution, then everything else comes together. So what I'm asking you to do and pray for is spiritual revival. Let's bring Jesus Christ back into our political system and stand for Him unashamedly, because none of this is going to happen without God. It ain't going to happen without God. And secondly, demand a revolution for the Constitution. A revolution for the Constitution, and let's impose that on our political system. Let's bring it back the way God intended it and the way God wrote it. Then your children will have a different future.
That was Tom Dickhead Delaney. He thinks he knows what the Constitution says. He says, God wrote our Constitution. Oh, my God. I hate it when people say such fucking ignorant things. God did not write the Constitution. Our Constitution was written by mostly deists, if not some of them were atheists at the time, although they may just not have known the term for it. But I mean, if they did, I'd be willing to bet you a good portion would say, yeah, I am an atheist. I don't believe in God. But the fact is, he did say the Constitution and your life would be different if we had religion in our country, as in, being part of the doctrine of our country, because if it was, this show would be a whole hell of a lot different. And if they think they're going to push their religion into our government, they've got another fucking thing coming. Dave, your thoughts?
I wasn't aware that the Constitution was divinely inspired by Jesus Christ and God. And,
yeah, neither did I, apparently.
Next thing they tell us, it was written like 100 years after the fact. No, I mean, it's absurd. And I think that the separation of church and state is, in our government, it's one of the most widely misunderstood things. On both sides. I mean, some people claim that there were no founding fathers who believed that this was a Christian nation. There certainly are quotes by John Adams, who says that we were a Christian nation. Mm-hmm. That being said, our Constitution is secular. There's distinct portions and amendments, especially the First Amendment, that make it clear that whether or not people believed in God or Jesus or any of that stuff is completely irrelevant. Mm-hmm. We're secularists above anything. Do I think that our founding fathers would support a lot of the rhetoric that goes on in the name of secularism nowadays? Probably not. Right. Frankly, they probably wouldn't. But, either way, they couldn't have known what the world would become all these years later. There's no way for them to have predicted that, which is why the Constitution is a living document that can change with the times. I just think it's absurd that people want to include their religion, and they want their religion to be the ruling thing. I mean, if you say, well, I got to bring God back into the Constitution and the government, well, which God is that?
Right, which God?
It's which God represents the people best? Well, if you're going by a vast majority, okay, so Christians would be represented best, but still, you're not representing a huge number of people in the country if you do that. Right. Which is why secularism is important. And I also think that these people forget their own scripture. I mean, I look at Matthew 6:5 and through 7. And it says, when you pray, you're not to be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners, that they may be seen by men. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But you, when you pray, go into your inner room, go close your door and pray to the Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you.
Right. I use that on somebody on Whisper because they keep posting their religious stuff on there. Said, yeah, you should do this. And it's like, well, doesn't mean anything like that today. That doesn't mean that. It's like, it's the same thing. You're just because you're posting it on a public blog. You might as well be preaching it out in the street just like they did. So same thing.
Yeah. I mean, on top of like Romans 13:5, which says, therefore it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also because of conscience. This is also why you pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
These are things that are in their Bible that they neglect to actually pay attention to, and I find that interesting that they preach one thing. It's just the cherry picking mentality over and over again.
Oh, absolutely. Connie, your thoughts?
It was very telling to me. He said he wants to go back 130. You'd have to go back 130 years.
I thought the country was a little over 200
years. It'll take us 50 years to undo this. And I was like, what happened 130 years ago? Well, that was before, obviously, civil rights, labor unions, women's suffrage, child labor laws. Basically, if you were white and you were male, you were good.
And owned property.
And it just, to me, the slaves may have been free, but they didn't have any rights. The blacks just didn't. You had to be a landowner, pretty much. And I just, his ignorance, too, of, obviously it's not a prerequisite for holding an office, but his ignorance of the very fact that God did not write the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he says he wants to both stand on the Constitution but rewrite the government, which makes little to no sense. He just wants to have his particular grift of religion to be in charge, and it's ugly. And I was curious where he's speaking at. This was a Give Me Liberty event at a church in Florida, the Countryside Baptist Church in Florida, Gainesville. And I went to the website. It's for Vision America. Tom DeLay was on it, and Rick Scarborough and Dexter Sanders. Somebody else on their website, again, it's called Vision America. Rafael Cruz is one of their speakers.
Mm-hmm.
The dad of that crazy father of what's his name, Cruz, the senator. And their catchphrase on a page here is "Liberty and Tyranny: The Biblical Principles of God." I'm just like, wow. So, if I were a bunch of believers, I'd be distancing myself from these nuts. Really,
absolutely.
Hold them at arm's length.
Absolutely. I just want to say a couple things in the chat room. Dawkins Dog said the Bible also said that all leaders are God appointed, and to obey them. This raises the question of tyrannical leaders, though. And then he also added in there, render unto Caesar which is Caesar's, then whine like a bitch when Obama spends it on something you object to.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Delaney, and Delaney's one of these right-wing nut jobs.
Actually, it's DeLay.
DeLay?
Sorry.
It's
yes.
DeLay? I thought it was Delaney, or DeLay, whatever his name is.
No, DeLay.
Okay.
Yeah. That's okay. Just if people are looking it up, it's capital D-E, capital L-A-Y.
Right, DeLay. Yeah, Dickhead DeLay, We have a delay on the show, but it's just usually because I have a hard time getting the show off the ground every Friday. So, but that's a different kind of delay.
Well, you have to wind that rubber band just a little tighter.
That's what I'm doing wrong. I kind of wind the rubber bands. All right. Anybody have any last words on this before we move on? All right. Well, let's get on to our next topic for this evening.
Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars. Let me see what spring is like on Jupiter and Mars.
And on tonight's Did You Know They're an Atheist? And we were going to be covering Patton Oswalt. It's Pattonoswalt. You might see him on a TV show. He was just recently on there. I can see it in my head. I just can't think of it.
The King of Queens?
No, he
Oh.
was on King of Queens. Yeah, he was on the King of Queens, but he was on a new TV show that's just came out like last year.
Oh.
It was like the New Avengers or something like that. It's
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., thank you. That's it.
Oh,
Agent of
okay.
S.H.I.E.L.D., yeah. He's been on there a couple times. He was on as himself, and he got killed, and then they find him again, and it's like, oh, yeah, that was my brother. It's like, oh, so he brought him back. But he's got this great comedy routine where he talks about sky cake. While he says he's an atheist, he did like a religion because it kept people like us, the little guys, able to survive because, the big guys would come up and beat you on the head. But if you told them there was sky cake, then they go, oh, I like sky cake. And then you basically hoodwinked them to make sure that, you tell them, well, if you beat me up, you don't get sky cake. So religion is basically a matter of mind control and controlling the populace. But there's this great quote that he has. He says, I'm still very much an atheist, except that I don't necessarily see religion as being a bad thing. So that's a weird thing that I'm struggling with that seems to be offending both atheists and people that are religious. So yeah, I can understand that. It's like, yeah, I don't believe in God, but I kind of like religion. So, and there's a lot of people out there, atheists among them, that do like the religion because it brings people around you. I mean, it's just a matter of being able to reach out to other people sometimes. Because let's face it, sometimes there isn't a secular alternative where you're at, and you want that camaraderie, and that's why a lot of atheists don't come out of the closet. But anyway, that's a whole other show. Dave, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really like Patton Oswalt. I think he's really funny. He has this whole nerdy vibe about him. He's extremely intellectual. He's controversial. He doesn't often seem to be bothered by what other people say about him. I do like his take on acknowledging everyone's beliefs, if you've seen that quote.
Mm-hmm.
He says you got to respect everyone's beliefs. No, you don't. That's what gets us in trouble.
Right.
You have to acknowledge everyone's beliefs. And then you have to reserve the right to go, that's fucking stupid. Are you kidding me?
I'm with you on that, Dave. I go around, I tell people all the time, it's like, I don't have to respect your beliefs. I can respect you, but I don't have to respect your beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, his viewpoint, and I totally agree, is that you have to acknowledge that people have those beliefs, and then, you have to reserve the right to say it's fucking stupid. It's nonsense.
Right.
He also has this great thing about the Bible is a book and all of that, but these lunatics always go, it says it in the Bible. Oh, okay, stop. Hang on. I'm glad you like a book. Just because you like something in a book doesn't mean you can have the thing you like in that book happen in real life. That's what crazy people want. I can't go to the White House with a bunch of Green Lantern comics and go, I want a Green Lantern ring I saw in a book I like. Make the thing in the book I like be here now.
Right.
I would be justifiably tased if I did that.
Right.
And so he over and over and over again has these comments in his stand-up routine, and he makes comments on Twitter and in different shows that he's on continually, and I really respect him for that. I mean, he's whether or not I agree with everything he says doesn't matter, because he certainly is all about saying what you think, and freedom of speech,
right,
and acknowledging that the opposite side of, freedom of speech also implies the right for people to dissent to what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
There is that, yes. Connie, your thoughts?
Yeah, freedom of speech doesn't mean that you have the authority to always be right. You don't have that. I absolutely loved his Sky Cake thing.
Yeah, you don't, if you have not seen Sky Cake, just look up Patton Oswalt Sky Cake.
Yeah.
You got to see that. There'll be a link at packardpokes@wordpress.com to it as well.
And it's sort of like the Occam's razor, but honestly, I agree. I don't necessarily think that everybody's ready to unplug. There are people who, not that they'd go out and like oh God, Banana Man say, oh, I would, if I wasn't a believer, I would be robbing and cheating and stealing people, or I'd be murdering people. You know, you get those people who get up there and say that and go, oh God, you're such an awful person.
Yeah, I hear people say that too. And I was like, damn, please take your religion then, because I don't want to see you out on the streets.
I need your name and your address. We're going to keep a watch on you.
Right.
You know, but some people need that structure, you know, and so I think in that sense, you know, that there's a lot of that made sense about what Patton was saying. And there's a lot of, and he actually admires, I think too, you know, he didn't go into it in the bit, but how religion, because, you know, we had a lot of really great art, because a lot of music and art that we've had over the centuries have been because somebody's doing it for a temple. They're doing it for, you know, a god or a goddess, or you know, the Christian god, and it's fine. But as society grows, as our knowledge grows, our need for that relationship spiritually becomes more and more narrow.
Right.
And you know, it's just highlighting the people who want to have the extreme. It's making them say, look, are you seeing what you're doing to the, you know? So he's not trying to shout down religion. He's trying to address it and talk to it. And
he's doing it in
his irony.
Yeah, he's definitely doing it in his own way. That's the thing. Everybody thinks, well, if you're an atheist, you have to do it this way. It's like, no, you don't. We all address things differently, and atheists all address the Christians and the religions out there all differently. I mean, I'm more in your face attack, and it's like, Arr! But me compared to some of the other ones out there, I'm like, oh, little kitty, tame. But
soft kitty,
warm kitty, purr. You know, that's by comparison. I mean, the way I address it, but you know, that's just me, of course. But anyway, Patton Oswalt. Check him out. He's on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thank you. I just remembered it now.
Yay!
Yay! He was on King of Queens, and he's on a lot of other variety TV shows out there, I'm sure. So check him out and watch his stuff. He's very funny, and he's got a lot of good stuff. And check out Sky Cake. And if someone religious post comes up to you and they start talking about their God, just say, I like Sky Cake! And and walk away. You'll leave them so confused they won't know what the hell hit them. So, all right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. We'll be back next week. We may have a short show next week due to my personal life going kind of off the rails for certain things right now. So we will be back next week. We may have a short show. We may have a long show. All time will tell. So this has been Packard Pokes At. We just poked at your news.
And that's a wrap.